So the last lecture, I was addressing that there would be a decline of the Islamic world and a rise of the West that we can anticipate, and you would have read about in chapter 22. And that Vasco da Gama was kind of one of the European explorers to spearhead this, and it was with an introduction of Europe into the Indian Ocean, and eventually at the expense of India in this case, which was dominated by Muslim India or Mughal India. So who were the Mughals? The Mughal Empire lasted from the 16th century all the way as late as the 19th, but it was really in a decline by the 19th. In these pictures I'm showing you, though, is that while Islam would often, in this time period, dominated politically, it didn't convert the continent to Islam. As a matter of fact, Islam remained a minority. And so, you have like this, you have depictions of other gods. Here's Krishna and Hinduism, and Hindus were the main religion that remained in India. And here you have a statue that actually is very explicit, sexually. Again, these are things that you would not see in, let's say, the majority of the Islamic world. But these were not destroyed by the Muslim rulers, even if they were not approved of by the majority. And if you look here at this map, the Mughal Empire was really fighting to maintain control over India. India has always been difficult for a central authority to control all of. Okay, and keep that in mind as well. And so, and over here I also have the picture of the Taj Mahal, right? Anyways, okay. So we're moving on to the next. Okay, so Islam in India. Unlike other Islamic quests, as I pointed out, few Muslims immigrated to India. And this is different than the way that things have often went in Indian history. There's a long history of conquerors coming from Central Asia, so the Aryans coming in and other leaders. Islam does come by way of Central Asian invaders, but again, there's not a massive immigration and very limited conversion to Islam in the case of India. Some Hindus that were maybe on the lower end of the caste of Hindu society found that they could take advantage of, or it was to their advantage to become Muslim. But other than that, upper class or wealthier Hindus remained Hindu. And so Muslims were always a minority. And sometimes some Islamic movements looked very much like Hinduism or some of the more mystical branches. So here in this picture, there's a Hindu mystic and a Muslim mystic sitting together and looking alike and doing many practices that are probably quite similar and maybe would not be approved by a lot of other Muslims in the world. I'm going to cover two important rulers of Mughal India. A very important one is Akbar. Now, he was very religiously tolerant. And it goes without saying that for the Mughals to rule as Muslims a really diverse society such as India that had a lot of different religions that were forbidden in Islamic practice, such as idolatry and having many gods, that there was this religious tolerance, and whether it's Christianity or Indian religion, and Akbar, he was particularly religiously tolerant, to a point where he even created his own religion. So he actually he was so open that many Muslims saw him as eventually just becoming a heretic, but he was very much into plurality of beliefs. And this tolerance was seen for harmony in India as a good thing. The other extreme to go in terms of Mughal rulers and the height of power was Aurangzeb And he was the exact opposite. He strengthened more Islamic power at the expense of Hindus, and it made a lot of the population angry, the non-Muslim population in particular. He did extend power of Mughals, but it's sometimes this happens with governments. Well, right while you're becoming the biggest, it's also going to decline steadily. And so here I've just kind of covered briefly some aspects to think about with Mughal India. And in the next lecture, I'm going to actually introduce the way that Europe then comes into contact with Mughal India.